Doing the document, is not. As far as. Whether the progression and yeah, you got to. You won't. Yeah, you're gonna slowly start to that. Yeah. He did mention it last night. Yeah, he pretty bad. I think it's right to move on. No. Let's see, it's moving forward. All. Yeah. And. He wasn't doing his lobby, right? Yes, it is. Yep. Hello.
Hey Jim, have you ever put your breakdown in correspondence before in a commission meeting?
I didn't, Mike did that, I didn't do that.
Has he ever done it?
No, he did, I asked him why, he said he just wanted people to take a look at it, see some of the things that we're doing, what our numbers are.
Oh, did you? Yeah, talking about the $300,000 reader or something in the state.
There's talking about the rat tree.
I don't remember this specifically. It was to help renew
The missing meeting.
missing middle.
That would be my guess, yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
I did talk to, Michigan Community.
Yeah.
Capital, with Mike.
Yeah.
They were focusing on that rat grant for help gas for other projects. So
All right.
disappointing, but. Exactly.
It's 7 o'clock. I'd like to welcome everyone. All the meeting to order. Please stand and pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Laster.
Here.
Nemecheck.
Here.
Concha.
Here.
Blue.
Here.
Meehan.
Here.
Form president.
Thank you. Well, Chief Spade, we're gonna do a badge pinning ceremony. We do.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Police officers' badges date back to medieval times, when knights wore a coat of armor and a coat of arms representing their allegiance and loyalty. A police officer's badge is perhaps the most visible and recognizable symbol of policing around the world. It is seen by many as a sign of authority, sacrifice, and service. At the Boyne City Police Department, we have a tradition on earning your badge. When you're hired, you get a plain badge that only bears the words police on it. Only after the training phase, when an officer has demonstrated their knowledge, skills, and ability to perform what we demand of our police officers, will they earn their official Boyne City Police Department badge. You're being entrusted with this badge as a symbol of your worthiness as a police officer, to serve and protect the people from whom you derive your power and authority, to enforce the laws of the land without fear or favor. Each officer here has helped you through your training in one fashion or another. And while you've worn several badges in your career, we'd like to present to you with your official Boyne City badge. Michael Patrick, welcome aboard. Ladies. Jessica. Also do official swearing in front of everybody.
I'll have you raise your right hand and you agree to speak and say I do it. I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of this state, and that I will faithfully perform the duties of the office of police officer in and for the city of Boyne City, County of Charlotte, State of Michigan, according to the best of my ability.
I do. Michael, I know it's might be uncomfortable. Is there anything you want to share with the audience? A little bit about yourself?
I won't have a lot to share. Originally, my grandfather's from Boyne City, graduated high school here. So I grew up in Charlotte, which I guess is a. I think it's just to say that. My old partner, Jeff Gates, said that my grandfather went to high school and graduated here. I do have a little rambler in me, so that's what makes me cool. So that I enjoy being back in this area, and I can't complain about the lake view every morning. I told Tim the other day, so it's grateful to be here.
Okay, so great. Welcome.
Thank you.
While we're here celebrating one joyous moment, I'd also like to introduce to you Ben Ernst. Ben is the cadet that we put through the academy. He graduated Friday and we made him work Monday, so he got a full 2 days off. Ben did a great job in the academy, went down to visit him. I could walk into the academy and I was with Assistant Chief Mercer and I said, if I had to pick 3 out of the 17, that I looked out as these kids were doing their PT and their classwork, I said, I want that kid. He presented himself very well. Probably about half the instructors are friends of mine and they have all reached out to me and said, hey, you got Ben, right? I said, yeah, I do. You got a good guy. So he's going through his field training office, or field training program with Officer Smith. In about 14 weeks, we'll be back up here with the badge ceremony for him as well. But until then, he gets the shiny police only badge. Like to say anything, Ben?
No, I just appreciate all the support. The academy was tough, but I learned a lot, 17-week period. And I'm just looking forward to continuing that learning process under Officer Smith. And over the next 14 weeks, I'm just preparing to serve the community. So thank you.
Thank you. Moving on, we have the consent agenda. The purpose of the consent agenda is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with by one commission motion without discussion. Any member of the commission, staff, or the public may ask that any items on the consent agenda be removed and placed as the last item under new business to receive full discussion. Such requests will be automatically respected. We have 2 items. Approve the April 25th, 2023 regular meeting minutes. Approve the appointment of Mitchell Booster to the Boyne District Library Board to a term expiring April 30th, 2027. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to move one of these consent agenda items? Commissioners? If you're not, I entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Is there a second? Second by George, Jessica, roll call please.
Meehammer.
Aye.
Hefner.
Aye.
Nemecheck.
Aye.
Aye.
Moody.
Aye.
Motion carried.
I see that Mitchell is in the audience. Welcome, Mitchell, and I appreciate you stepping up and becoming a member of the library.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Okay, now we have item 5, citizen comments on non-agenda items. Anyone in the audience who wishes to address the commission? Please move to the podium. State your name, address, and you're limited to 5 minutes.
Hi, I'm Steve Richard, 526 East Lincoln Street. Last week's city manager report, I'm reading the minutes and I'll just say what it says. All 3 pumps at the Rivermouth pump station are now installed and connected. We continue to have frequent clogging issues with the new pumps, which we're working with our engineers to get figured out. And then also the new generator hadn't been fully installed and other items to be completed. My question is, we engaged an engineering company. I'm curious to understand, do you mean clogging? I mean, what is happening that the pumps don't operate? It's a highly engineered system. So I'm curious what they ran into, what you've run into in this operation. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you could
I'm
address
sorry.
that question. Maybe.
Yeah, it's odd to me. We've been a couple years at this. It's a major construction project and we hired expert engineers. So it caught my attention after the fact to hear that we have new pumps that is it clogging really what's going on, or are they not able to pump? Is it cavitating, or why don't they operate as intended? was one, and the other question is. The other items remain, usually that sounds like a punch list that typically won't have at the end of the job, and I just was curious what else was on there.
On the.
It says, yeah, it says other items remain to be completed.
Any other questions? Mike, do you have an update that you could provide now, or would you rather,
No, I can give at least the start of a report to the commission. Yes, that Rivermouth Pump project was actually a rebuilding of pretty much all the major components inside the Rivermouth Pump Station. That was designed by our engineers, C2AE. We have 2 brand new pumps that are in there. There's 3 pumps total. The 2 new pumps are matching the existing one that's been there for a couple of years. And debris that travels down the sewer lines, Blossom, Detsum, hygiene products, things of that nature. They're gathering up and they are at various times clogging the pumps, literally clogging them. And we're trying to figure out through the engineers what is the remedy for that. Our new DPW wastewater utility director, Doug, has been active on this as well too. And we're working to try and understand the issue and what the proper correction for it would be. With regards to the generator and other items, we're not quite to the pump stage, to the punch list portion of it yet. We're not that close to completion. There are some significant items that have yet to be done. A lot of them are just been delayed with regards to, like, the generator took so long to get here, and now they're working on connecting that and getting all the communication systems and things of that nature. So we're not so close that we're down to a punch list items, but we are to the point where the pumps are operational.
So there's a remedy that's been put in place, like an upstream filtration system or something.
I think what I heard is you recognize the problem and they're working on solving the problem. I don't know if everything's the same thing.
So the word was truly clogging, and that is exactly what's happening to it. Okay, so it's saying the debris is getting to the pumps. There was no upstream filtration.
correct? All right, anyone else? Okay, moving on to the correspondence. We have an invoice dated May 2nd, 2023.
Yeah, we did have one other person that was going to speak under citizens' comments, and that was our new representative from Housing North, who's our Charlevoix County Housing Coordinator, Zachary Samples. Probably should have given him the high signs, and it was time to get up at that point. But we wanted to have him come to the commission, and we thought this would be a good way to have him introduce himself for a couple minutes with the commission.
Great. Well,
Hi guys, like Mike said, I'm Zach Samples. I'm here with Housing North. Don't know if you want to vote. There we go. Got a little presentation here. Oh, sorry. Oh, and it's even a different one than I thought. That's fine. So I'm the housing ready coordinator for Charlevoix County. I'm working with Boyne City, Charlevoix County, Charlevoix, and East Shore. You guys are the ones that ponied up for this position to be filled. And that's primarily where my time is being spent. I do spend a little bit of time helping coordinate with the townships when there is something that's kind of infrastructure related that I can help coordinate that. But for most of my time is spent with you guys here. So
Just tell me when you'd like to advance the screen.
let's go over the next one here. So I can't read all that to you and I won't bother, but this is just kind of highlighting some of the achievements here from housing in Charlevoix County. I can't take credit for them. I just started here a month or two ago. Steve Snell was here before that, and he really laid a lot of the groundwork work to get things started, so. I know Steve came out, you guys have seen his work, gave you guys a lot of numbers. Did a lot of advocacy stuff. My hope is I don't necessarily have to do that. I think we all kind of recognize that there is a problem. If you guys want to see some numbers, I'm happy to bring them to you, just let me know. But I think my time is better spent hitting the ground, working with Scott, working with Mike, working with developers and trying to make those numbers work for everyone. You know, if you guys want to see numbers and you want the advocacy, you want to see what's happening, where the numbers are for Charlotte County compared to the rest of the state, I'm happy to do that. But as of lately, that's my mission has been on the ground. Let's try and get a project built. So.
Do you want to continue on this, or is this a different presentation?
It's a little bit different than I was expecting. That's okay. I must have clicked the wrong one. I had two ready to go. So
No, this is the one I got.
yeah, that's fine. Same gist. So again, these are more of the achievements there, and I can't see exactly what this one reads, but more alluding back to kind of some of the stuff that Steve had been working on in Charlotte County prior to me showing up. And we can send you this presentation too if you guys want. My other one that I've got, I can send to Mike to distribute as well. Has a lot of clickable links. You guys can pull stuff up, and it's got the most recent studies and things like that. So I'll make sure Mike has it if you guys want it. Again, achievements, it looks like.
Yes.
So, yeah, a lot of achievements there, and I think there's a lot of mixed in of the goals of housing, trying to fill those gaps where it, you know, for these guys here, for your staff here to only be working on housing wouldn't be fair to the city with everything else they have going on. And that's kind of the role that I'm hoping to fill, is where I can focus on the housing, recognize that that's an issue, and these guys can still do their day-to-day with my assistance on the housing portion. And this slide here just kind of outlines kind of the vocabulary. It's got the 80 to 120% AMI, or it's broken down into the different percentages actually. So there's the affordable housing portion, which could be under, I believe that's under 80%, the 80 to 120 being the affordable housing, and anything above that being market rate housing. I think that graphic's important to look at. The vernacular can get kind of mixed up, and this just kind of helps to be a little bit more precise when we look at those numbers and we say, okay, here's where our housing gaps are. You know, is it really in the market rate? There's some, but really it's in that attainable and affordable rate that we're really lacking. So, next one. So this slide just kind of outlines, it's one of the big proponents that the Housing North stands for, is about 30% of your income being spent on housing. Any more than that kind of stretches people too thin. With inflation rising, wages aren't rising always at that same rate. It's making that 30% harder and harder for most people to deal with. And that's kind of the issue that the crux of the issue that we're facing right now. One of these statistics that actually, you know what, is in this presentation. So I'll wait for it. And I think it's the next slide. This one, it is. So the median home price in March 2023 was $314,000. And that's up from 14% since last year. So we're to say things are kind of dying down. That's 14% is still a big jump, and you know, you can use statistics however which way you want, and there's, you know, so many sources they come from. But I think from at a basic level that we're still experiencing problems in housing here is what I'm trying to represent there. I think it's $19,008 or $1,908 is basically what that median income should be spending on housing right there. In 2020, the median household income was $55,000, and that equates down to about $1,400. So we've seen an increase there. That's probably one of our most recent studies is the Networks Northwest Housing Study there in 2019 with target market analysis. That's where a lot of these numbers are pulled from, but it's basically showing that our region has a great need for housing there, over 10,000 just in rental homes alone. That's our region. That's not the city of Boyne City. We're not hoping to put 10,000 homes in here. But we'll do what we can with what we can. That's the hope. So we'll go over to the next one. Okay. So there's the legislation that just passed in December. That's still kind of figuring out all the components. I think there's 4 that were passed. And that's a big part of what Housing North does, and that's what that Yarrow's actually at right now. She's in Lansing working on that advocacy stuff for the state to represent not just housing as the state, but really in the Northwest region where we are, because a lot of that primary focus is on Metro Detroit, the Grand Rapids and the Lansing areas. They get all the funding, but we have those problems too. So she's trying to get our fair share as well. And this kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier with working with local developers, working with city staff, and kind of filling the gaps where everyone is and kind of getting everybody in the same room in a sense, or at least on the same page, whether it's just phone call, sitting down in a meeting, whatever I can do to help. But that's the lane I'm kind of taking right now. And this is just one we want Boyne City to be a community of hardworking people and young families who can afford to live. We don't want to outprice the people that built this town. So that's what I've got. And if you guys have any other questions, please let me know. Yeah.
So, are you familiar with Boyne USA's request for rezoning in Boyne Valley Township?
I'm a little familiar with that, yeah.
Would that benefit housing in any way?
It's got potential to. It does. I don't want to act like I'm familiar enough to know that I can lay down definitive answers on that, but it's on my radar for sure.
Mike, you got something?
I didn't know if you talked to them about your background,
Oh, yeah, sure.
a little bit about you.
Yeah, I'm excited about the housing portion, yeah. So, I've got degrees in natural resources management. I've got my master's in urban and regional planning. American Institute of Certified Planners certified. I've worked with the MPO in Genesee County, with Manistee County, and the city of Manistee, the townships, many of the townships in there, most recently the city of Petoskey. Kind of bounced all over in a lot of different capacities as a planner. But I'm really liking being focused now here with just kind of a single issue focus of the housing is what I'm enjoying. Yeah.
We can tell them where you live.
Oh, well, you need to find me. I am a city resident. And I'm slated to be on the ZBA in July. So I'll be here for a year in July, and that's when I can sign up. So unless we get an influx of residents that want to be on the ZBA before that, no, maybe.
Mike, is there going to be something in the future with Housing North and our contract with them, and with Steve leaving, and there's been some.
So the city commission approved the contract. We back when this came up last fall, I believe it was. I'd have to look at the exact dates, but I reviewed the minutes before. Once we heard that they brought the person back on, because Marty asked at the last meeting with regards to the payments of bills and things of that time. And we paid the bills that we have been getting were on a quarterly basis. And we paid that first quarter, and then Steve left, and we hadn't made any payments since. The contract was approved by the city commission. It was contingent upon having, the payments were basically put on pause until they had full staffing and working with us again. So we're going to be resuming those quarterly payments. They're a little over $2,000 a quarter.
Something, I don't know how much detail we will get into this, but one thing you mentioned when you're spending a lot of time in the city, Boyne City, like that's your main focus. Don't you like Charlotte, East Jordan? I mean,
Yeah. That's
where you're equally distributed with the county, working with the county for all those sorts.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, my thanks for the way you started out, then we kind of got into the numbers again, but I was more than, it was more than refreshing hearing that we're gonna actually try to do something and put boots on the ground instead of numbers, because that's all we got was numbers. And it was just numbers, and, you know, so talking to developers, I'm all for it, I get that. I respectfully disagree with what, the city manager just said. All we said was that we were gonna finish out our 9 months of the contract. Once that comes up, then we said that we would relook at it and vote on it. So we have 3 quarters left to go.
Yeah.
I just want that to be clear that we're not all in. So, but hopefully we can, if we start seeing, you know, some actual results and everything. I'm excited, you know, we have new blood, new opportunity, see where it takes us. And hopefully, this turn into enough. Thanks. Anybody else?
Congratulations, welcome. And I couldn't record it, it's good rolling. Sounds good, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have correspondence, Jim Bowman, from May 2nd. Any Larson, email, April 26th, and the computer, everything public. Moving on, we have the city manager. Oh, sorry.
In regards to correspondence from, Jeannie Larson, were you able to pass that gratitude on to those city employees for that appreciation? No, not yet. Okay. First off, I want to wish everybody a happy new year, a new fiscal year for us. Our fiscal year began on May 1st and will run through April 30th. Our annual Arbor Day and Buck Up Boyne events were held since our last meeting, and both went very well. As mentioned earlier, Doug Barney began work on May 1st as well as our new DPW and Utilities Director. The house at 35 East Main Street and a budding vacant lot have been deeded over to the Charlevoix County Land Bank Authority as previously approved by the City Commission. The 1-ton Ford 350 cab and chassis that were approved by the City Commission at our last meeting is no longer available from Ford for this model year. Bob Mathers went online and went to, they still have the portal open, but when you went to order a specific vehicle, so that production has already been booked out. He hopes that they'll be able to place an order for a 2024 version towards the end of June, and will be keeping us posted. And we're also looking to see if there's any other alternatives for that truck as well. Last week, the state removed their permitting requirements for the initial phase of the open space improvements and gave permission for the project to be bid. This ties in with the information we received from Tim Knudsen on the wetland areas in the southwest portion of that lot. Bids are due in June, after which they will be reviewed by the Park and Recreation Commission and then brought to the City Commission for your consideration. Work on the new splash pad being installed in Peninsula Beach Park is expected to resume this week. Water production well number 3, which is the one behind the 1910 building that we've approved improvements to, has been returned to operation and can again provide water to our system. Line Street, where we've been doing the sanitary sewer line replacement, is scheduled to be paved this Friday. That should be the last major component of that. Then they'll get into the punch list items there. The Shoppers Dock and Fishing Pier are scheduled to be returned to their in-season locations by the end of the week. Boyne City resident Ralph Galbraith has been hired as our seasonal harbor master. He brings with him his experience in the Coast Guard Auxiliary, where he serves as their treasurer of the local flotilla. The marina, our marina is scheduled to open next Monday, the 15th. Our spring household rubbish collection program will be held on Saturday, May 20th. Commissioner approved that at our last meeting. We're confirming that date since then. The city continues its spring curbside pickup of leaves on Mondays and Fridays. And if people need more information, that's available here at City Hall. Tomba has completed work on the downhill jump line trail called Daria as part of the Boyne Forest Trail System off north of the city off of Horton Bay Road in Evangeline Township, and is scheduled a ribbon cutting for next Wednesday, the 24th. Yeah, that's 2 Wednesdays. I was thinking that was wrong, at 5:30 p.m. and everybody's welcome to that. And if you have any questions or want additional items on this or other items, be glad to try and address them.
Thank you. Commissioners? Questions? Comments? Moving on, we have reports of officers, boards, and standing committees. We have the Florida District Commission regular meeting minutes of March 16, 2023. We have the Parks and Recreation Commission regular meeting minutes of April 6, 2023. The Planning Commission regular meeting minutes, April 17, 2023. And the Airport Advisory Board regular meeting minutes of April 27, 2023. Comments or questions? I have one, like, that's on the airport board, and there was that report from the state that had a list of things that needed to be done. Is anything alarming there, or?
The major issue is with regards to the number of trees that are around the property and the impact that has on the approach and departure lanes. So the park board will be reviewing that at their next, the airport board will review that at their next meeting. We're talking about how to address these.
How often is that inspection done?
It's every few years. The state tries to do them every couple of years, but they've been kind of backed up. They've had a huge changeover in personnel. So we had some new eyes on the field this time. We had some really good discussions with them while they were here. They seemed impressed, but they did flag a number of items that need to be addressed here. And they're doing similar things at other airports in the area. Well, I should say across the state.
Thank you. Okay, moving on, we have the old business. We have short-term rental license update. Update of short-term rental ordinance implementation by planning director Scott McCary.
Thank you, Mayor. As requested, I'm coming to the commission to give an update. Shortly after the short-term rental ordinance became effective, the planning department began the process of notifying present and past identified short-term rental owners of the new ordinance requirement of the process to obtain license. In this process, over 250 letters were mailed, and the planning department communicated directly with many short-term rental owners by phone, email, and person. The first short-term rental permit was issued on January 4th, and permit 161 was issued on April 6th. This represents approximately 99% of the currently active short-term rental units in the city, and it is anticipated that we will reach 100% compliance in the next couple of weeks. I've had communication with the outstanding people that don't have licenses, and they do intend to get them. So currently, as of May 1st, and as of today, there are 161 licenses for short-term rentals in the city, and that breaks down to 102 in the traditional residential district. 8 of those are short accessory dwelling units. 7 makes up for 7.8% of the housing stock in that district. Multi-family residential district, there are 22, at 3.9% of the district. You may recall some of the figures from past updates show a little higher number in that district, because those include the one Wash Me In. But after reviewing their classification, when they run their operation, they are more
hotel is by definition, so those are excluded and not required to give us. In the central business district, there's 20, which makes up about 16.9% of the housing units in that district. The waterfront residential district is 9, which represents 7.2. Rural estate district, there's 7, which is 5.2%, and 1 in professional office district, 7.7. As expected, for a couple of months following the adoption of the ordinance, much time was dedicated to sending letters, issuing licenses, and answering questions. With what appears to be the majority of licenses issued, the time now needed for administration of the ordinance has dropped to anticipated levels of allowed pay. The Boyne City Police Department, and speaking with Chief Spade, has not seen an appreciable increase in complaints or enforcement activity due to the operation of short-term. In July, the contract term of Granicus will expire. Currently, the city has a contract for 2 modules of their services, the address identification module and the compliance monitoring module. The current annual contract cost for the address identification is $6,740, and the compliance monitoring is $4,050. The current contract was for $2,988, and it was prorated for a partial year. We didn't start that until around October. Given the current inflationary trends, it's anticipated that these amounts will increase for the upcoming year. The address identification has worked well and is seen as a necessary tool for successful administration of the ordinance. With the initial landscaping completed, we've gone through the compliance monitoring module. The value of this service is now reduced. With the current database of license holders, phone numbers, email addresses, reminders for contract renewals, or responding to any issues can be done quickly and efficiently through phone and email. Occasionally, there may be a need for a letter to be sent, but this is anticipated to be a limited occurrence. With the limited value, the compliance monitoring service now offers, I do not see a compelling reason to renew this module contract. For about the last month, the number of active SDRs has changed little. We've had probably about 140 that are actively operating since probably February. That's less than the number of licenses. There's a number of licenses, operators that don't actively advertise right now, but they do have a license. However, it is anticipated that some short-term rental units will become active as we progress in the summer seasons. The 161 licenses issued so far have generated $48,300 in license fees. In the upcoming years, the collected license fees are estimated to be less due to the lower renewal fee, and that not all license holders will choose to annually renew license. It's estimated that in the upcoming years, annual license fees collected will be in $35,000. At this time, license fees appear to be sufficient to cover the costs of administration of the program. Overall, licensing process has gone smoothly with no real issues. The large majority of short-term rental owners have been friendly, cooperative, and understanding, with only a few registering complaints about the need for ordinance, the license, or the fee. I believe one of the primary reasons for the relative smooth implementation of the program can be traced back to the transparent and thoughtful process the City Commission took in the development of the ordinance and creation of an ordinance that was fair and equitable and accomplished the goals for which it was established. With that, we have
Scott, does for the top of the tier D district, 102, the 7.8, does that 7.8% represent 8 ADUs in that as well, or is that without the ADUs?
that's total, so it'd be a little less.
Removing the ADUs.
Yeah, right, 7.7.
And how has that changed since the last time you reported to the commission? Is that 7.8 higher?
Since the last time I reported, there was 8 ADUs, but, there was only, I believe, 91 or 92 total units, so it went up by about 8.
And just ballpark, do you remember the last time you updated us on that?
That was in February, when,
February 14th.
yeah,
Went up to. We were at 92 plus again, so that was 100, now we're at 102, like I say, it's 94. Yeah.
Thank you.
So, Scott, did you say that? So we are requiring Water Street to have a license? Is that what you said?
by definition, those units, meet our definition of hotel. And our ordinance excludes hotels from requiring a license. And the reason they meet that definition, they have services that are offered at that inn. They also pay a tax, the convention bureau tax. So they're not a typical dwelling unit, even though they can be and are used for dwelling unit. Any comments or questions from the audience?
I'm Sandy Richard, 526 East Lincoln. Sorry, I didn't quite hear the answer to Marty's question about One Water Street. You said, I think you said it fits our ordinance definition of a hotel. And you said something about a tax that is paid. What was the name of that tax?
It's a hotel resort tax.
So those rooms, when they're rented, are being charged the usual
They're being taxed, yeah.
as a hotel.
Yeah.
And sales tax, I presume. Okay, thank you. Just a question for Mr. Spade, I guess, or a clarification. Has not seen an appreciable increase in complaints and or enforcement activity. And I'm just would be curious to know what you had seen and how many other complaints you have seen. It's no appreciable increase, what does that mean?
Other than the.
Steve,
I'm sorry.
could address that question, or if you have other questions, so we can do it all at once.
So that's one.
Okay.
I understand correctly, we're not going to do the compliance monitoring. And that there will be a proposal potentially to continue with the address. The question is, are we going to continue with the address identification? As a comment, it says that we got 48,300 in license fees, and there is logically anticipated to be some decline in revenue, estimate of 35,000. Will that 48.3 go into a short-term rental enforcement fund of its own? So as to not be absorbed into the city and to be saved for a rainy day, should it be needed. And I guess it's debatable as to the, I agree, there was a great amount of awesome work done with public hearings on STRs, and the creation of the ordinance was a lot of energy, that everybody worked really hard in Scott's team, and I appreciate that. I don't know that it accomplished the goals of all stakeholders in the city, in the community. We ended up without a cap. We ended up with the greatest focus that wasn't, I guess, protected was the traditional residential district, because it does represent 63% of the total number of STRs. 63% are in the residential district. And that does not include owner occupied property, which has a nebulous, unenforceable, I think, content about 6 months residency. And I don't think that was sufficient because that's too easy for a workaround. Actually, during the course of the public hearings, there were even people in the waterfront district who have mega millions in their homes who are not happy about having short-term rentals next door. And there was a lot of discussion about how many people are able to go to the bank and buy beyond their means of a normal person that I would have to compete with because I want to live in my house full time. But they go to the bank with a business model that shows they can pay that $2,000 mortgage because they're going to rent it out X period of time. So I still think we have a ways to go. I'm getting where the people of Boyne City would like to see STRs. So that's my comment, but my questions stand.
So just to make sure I've got them all, Sandy, you're wondering about the impact that for police department's response, the compliance monitoring, short-term rental enforcement fund, where that money will go.
Yes, it's generated revenue.
No, but are those three questions?
Yeah.
The questions?
Yes.
Did I get them?
Yes.
And then just clarification from Scott, just an accurate consensus of a comment you made, TRD percentage does not include owner occupied.
My understanding, they don't have the license.
That's not true at all.
Okay, correct me.
As I can say, can you highlight on that, Scott? Or
Anyone,
clarify on that comment?
anyone who operates a short-term rental as defined by the ordinance, which is you run for more than 28 days
Correct,
in a year period
correct,
on a short-term basis, you require to get a license.
correct, okay.
So the triangulates the question, I guess. So then 102 includes owners occupied.
Correct.
Okay, I stand corrected. Thank you.
Scott, could you address, or Kevin, could you first address the question about the city department?
Sure. I remember back when we first started on this, there was a couple of properties where we knew we had complaints on that were direct related to short-term rentals. We had some people speak on it in here, the owners, or not the owners, the neighbors. I have not had any complaints out of those properties since that I know of, and I don't have anything popping up that I can say was directly related to short-term rental. Scott had asked me a week or so ago. He gave me all the addresses and we started looking through when there was nothing that was popping up that would be directly related to short-term rentals. We could find out.
Kevin, could you do the compliance monitoring?
Yeah, as I explained in my memo, I don't see the value of the compliance monitoring module. I can do that as effective in-house without spending that money. In regards to the address identification, I would highly recommend the city commission to continue with that portion of the contract. I think that's a vital tool to be able to accomplish the administration of the program.
Do you have just a ballpark idea of what the savings is not utilizing that modular compliance and doing that in-house with the administration?
Well, last year's quoted contract is $4,050. It may be up a little bit from that, I would imagine, $4,000 to $5,000.
So minimum probably $4,000 savings.
Yeah.
That take into account the time you're gonna have to spend doing with that too.
Well, the bulk of the work of that was the initial mass mailing, and they did all that, so I would just send, 200 letters to all. So I didn't have to do that. Now, it would be, so I would have to send a letter to that, which isn't very long. And since I have a database of all those owners now, I can directly communicate them with them by email. So, the time amount is, within the anticipated time I'd be spending on it. And then the other. Fees. As you may recall, we discussed the establishment fees. These fees cannot be more than the required amount of time and effort and money spent to administer the program. And I went through a pretty detailed listing of expenses and came up with an estimate for that. The city commission established that fee for that reason. So these fees are directly related to the administration of the program. And if they're found to be too much, that's considered tax. If they're too less, it's considered a subsidizing role. So you kind of gotta get that sweet spot where you're charging what it costs them. But you can't create a fund for a raise. No, you can't create a fund. That would be a tax, and that's something that we cannot do. Thank you. Thank you, Steve. Anyone else? If you want to start.
I appreciate the update. Very well written. The only thing I would say is, I would just like another update potentially going forward. I mean, I think it's a good value in getting the update and making sure that it's staying contained and, yeah. We had a discussion in detail in regards to the revenue that was coming in during our budgeting process, so. I think we're right, that was my biggest concern, and that was kind of the broken record comments that I made all along, is making sure that your administration office wasn't being bogged down by this additional operational process that you guys are being encountering, because it is a lot of dwellings and there's a lot of additional work. So I'm glad that the work and the effort that your team has put into it already, the quality of the work is already displayed in this update. So I would be interested in seeing an update potentially in another 3 months, 6 months.
Yeah, maybe once we get through the summer, it'd be a good time. Early fall.
And I would even say, if Scott, at any point in time, you're seeing a major influx where you feel the commission needs to react and become very sensitive to it, please approach the city administrator and allow that to become something that you can step forward at any point in time. I would express, I don't know if there would be a consensus here, but an open door if you're seeing a major influx or anything that we need to get a hand on or anything.
I received that, message last time we spoke about, getting up towards that higher level of numbers of units. So, yeah, that's on my mind. I see that definitely.
I agree wholeheartedly. Thanks for the update. Very concise and clear on where you're coming from again, Scott. I agree with, what was just said. And, I think, another, look at it unless something drastic arises somewhere in September or something. I think it'd be great if we could got another, update. And, I think it's working out, we planned it to work, so happy with that.
No, I just support, keep an eye on that. There's no residential district for a cat. For fireworks. We agree we're gonna look at it. And do that.
I would just like to clarify the number from your memo on February 14th when we talked about the CAD, that there were 94 currently active in the traditional residential district. So that included 80 units as well, correct? I don't have that number, but I believe so. Yeah. Okay, and what's the second? Total be 83 short, one applications have been submitted. 66 have been issued, 17 applications are pending payment. And then for the traditional residential district, total 63 applications have been submitted, 50 licenses have been issued, and applications are pending payment. In the traditional residential district, there are 94 currently active short-term rentals,
which is 72.2% of the approximately 1,303 TRD dwelling units. Of those, 10 were not held on the cap. So now we have,
Well, there's a difference in the numbers. I'm just talking licenses now. Those were active units I was looking at that were active at the time that did not have licenses. So some of them have decided not to operate anymore. Some have got licenses. So you're kind of looking at apples and oranges over there.
so is there a way to, just because, like, if we're talking about some drastic number, what it was 3 months ago and what the number is now?
Yeah, I think we've had a small increase in the number since February, probably 4 or so. And now that we have a licensing program, we can have much firmer numbers on exactly who's operating and how many are increasing over time. So I think, instead of this speculating on users and what they'll get a license or not, now we have them, and then we address anything that come up.
So when it's described as if something drastic happens, let us know.
Right.
How would you define drastic?
Well, if next week I see 10 new active in the short term in the TRD, and where I get, a bunch of applications, it'd be, 10 or more, I would think that would be a significant change. If it's 1 or 2, I don't see that really.
The whole perspective.
Well,
If you get 10 in a month, that's 10. If you get 1 or 2 a week for 3 months, you got 10, and you just can't react. I mean, so I guess in your mind, there's a number here that's been established, and once we get beyond that number, what is that number? It's been
the number that we're talking about at the commission, 10%. So once we start approaching that, that's, what's the threshold that I know the commission wanted. Have it addressed.
I'm just going off memory here from the budgeting session, and I believe that was the 10%. As we approach, or we got close to 10%, I think there was a consensus at the budget meeting. We asked Scott to approach the commission if we started seeing, or if he started seeing the TRD percentage approaching that 10%.
Well, I was sick at that particular budget meeting.
Right.
But we did have it on February 14. We had a long discussion about setting a cap, and we didn't do it. And, I can sense it at a budget hearing. I don't think it's appropriate for something that's as serious as this, that we're allowing residents in our traditional residential neighborhoods to be sold for short-term rentals. I think we have enough personally, and, I just want that to be in the record. So, thank you, Scott. Anything else? Okay. Moving on. We have new business. Zoning Board of Appeals. Consider the recommendation of planning and zoning assistant body Shanat Kona to appoint Robin Ashore to the zoning board of appeals to a term ending September 1st, 2025, and to consider appointing a member of the city commission to a term that ends concurrently with their commission term. Scott, you can.
Yeah, I can take this. Bonnie's right now currently, we have more vacancies than appointed persons on our ZBA. We have Rob Carlisle is the only appointed person in the Aaron place, who's on the planning commission is the alternate. So we do have one application for a qualified person that can be appointed and be recommended. The statutory is appointed by the commission. Bonnie also indicates that it is the discretion of the commission to appoint a city commission member. Personally, I don't recommend that. Just for the potential of a ZBA sitting in judgment of a decision that the city commission makes. That to me is a conflict. It's in my mind, planning commission representation by the city commission is different. As the planning commission and city commission would never have a situation where one is judging a final decision that's going to be made. The only things that come from the planning commission to the city commission are recommendations. So there's never a final decision. But in the case of the ZBA, there is the potential for a final decision by the city commission to be in front of the ZBA. So you have potentially the same person standing in judgment of their decision. So in a normal case where you have plenty of people to appoint to these boards, I wouldn't recommend it, but if we needed to have a quorum, I would reluctantly say, do it until you can find suitable. That's my. So, with that, if there's any questions, I have the answer.
Is it in the city charter to allow city commissioners to serve?
I'm not sure about the charter, but the Michigan Enabling Act does provide for that discretion. So I think the charter is silent on the CPA appointments.
How busy have the ZBA been in the last 12 months?
Not busy. So they may hear 2, maybe 3 cases a year.
Okay. Their business hasn't been impacted. Projects are going to.
No, they've been able to function.
Thank you, Scott. Any questions or comments from the audience?
No, fine. We'll give the recommendation, and I agree, I don't believe that. I think it is a kind of a so. I would agree with the appointment, but disagree with the recommendation. The other person.
Good. What I said.
I agree with the support.
I agree. A year ago, we were getting all boards and the appointments and everything under control and according to what I believe was sound and what was allowed by our charter. I think was thrown out there that, or asking if I wanted to serve on the ZBA, but I knew the conflict of interest that was there. And that's why I never stepped forward or pursued that conversation or getting on the ZBA because of the potential conflict of interest there. So I agree with the appointment, but
Okay. I agree too, and I agree with non-appointed of the city commissioners, so your motion.
make a motion that the city commission appoint Robin Kotcher. Is that how you pronounce it?
Well, what is it's Tashmar.
Tash for Krista to the zoning board of appeals to a term ending September 1st, 2025.
Okay, there's a second. Or any further discussion? Jessica, roll call please.
Lassiter.
Aye.
Nemecheck.
Aye.
Conklin.
Aye.
Moody.
Aye.
Needhammer. Motion carries.
Thank you. Item B, high wire quarter ordinance first reading. Mike?
Certainly. As a city commission will recall, we recently received correspondence and a verbal presentation from Ben Van Dam of Van Dam Custom Boats and the Boyne Boatyard on Division Street, requesting support in their efforts to create a high wire corridor. It was presented that such a corridor would provide for improved and safer transport from their facilities on Division Street to their boat launch at the Harbor Marina on Front Street. And I will bring up a map shortly that shows the proposed route. And there's also a draft ordinance that our city attorney has prepared for the commission's review, consideration, and possible first reading tonight. It's staff understanding that the city commission desires to consider this matter further. based on successful experiences that Moran Iron Works had in creating a similar high wire corridor and supporting ordinances establishing the corridor through their county and Rogers City. We obtained copies of those ordinances, and our city attorney, Matt Cross, drafted an ordinance for your consideration. Since only city streets are involved in this request, only one ordinance is needed. We don't have to reach out to the county or the state or anything of that nature. The proposed high corridor ordinance is being presented to the city commission tonight for a first reading. As required by the city charter, ordinance amendments cannot be adopted until at least 1 month after the meeting it is introduced. Our next available city commission meeting, if you choose to move forward with the first reading tonight, would be at our June 13th meeting. It is understood that this is the first draft of an ordinance that the city commission is seeing, and the commission may prefer to have additional time to review and consider this matter. I'd also point out that we had put out today along the route that I'm going to bring up here in a second, a number of our yellow public information signs, so people can start to get a feel that something's going on there and inquire with regard to it. We'll leave it up for a couple days and then see if people have any questions for it. So it's my recommendation that the city commission approve the first reading of the amendment to chapter 54 of the Boyne City Code of Ordinances to enact Article 4, section 54-82, subsections 1 through 5, and then schedule a second reading on this matter at our June 13th, 2023 meeting, or later if the commission so desires. I'll bring up that map now. And on the screen now is the proposed route, starting with their facility over here, continuing down to Pleasant Street, Pleasant to Front, and Front into the entrance of the Harbor Marina parking area. I'd be glad to address any questions you may have on this. Mr. Van Dam is also present as well.
Sure. Your name and sorry, Ben Van Dam, 970 East Division Street, Van Dam Custom Boats and Boatyard. I think I shared my piece before, what this means to us as a business and allowing us to more safely and more expeditiously move boats down the Harvard waterfront. One request I shared with Mike in the ordinance is listed as 28 feet. I would like to request that be moved to 35 because I think there's a possibility for that 28 to be a problem further down the road. So past that, I'm happy to answer any questions, any concerns.
So you're not asking the city for any funding for this, this is just to create this ordinance so that you can have the goals and you're working with the power companies and other funding sources to make it happen.
That is correct. We're intending on paying for this fully. The issue at hand is really if we can protect the work we are doing today. Yes.
So back to Mike first, so why are we having the reading before you notified all people?
We do that simultaneously. There's no requirement that we post any notices at this point. But we think it's prudent to do so.
Okay.
And then we will have a second opportunity at the second reading as well too, before adoption.
And then we talked about this then, and you just have it again, so there's no financial commitment from the city for this. This is all on however you get it done, but, and then it's a big but, now you will write your own grants and everything. I know you need the city to be able to issue them. But I mean, is there any, like, hang on one second, is there any cost to the city of that? Mr. King?
I mean, there might be some staff time if we were looking to help facilitate a grant or submit a grant with regards to it. There usually aren't any application fees with regards to it. My understanding is that there was a match that they would look to provide that match for us with regards to it, but I would let Mr. Van Dam speak to that.
Yes, that is correct. My request is, in that regard, is simply for, grants that would require a public entity, to submit them, that the city support us in that endeavor and be the fiduciary. But any financial requirement, would come from us. If there was a match that was required, we would take care of that. We did not discuss directly whether, staff time would be paid by us or not. I would hope, as being one of the larger taxpayers in our city, that some of that would be, just part of doing business as a city. But this is something that is very important to our team, for our safety. I think it's going to make the corridor much more beautiful. I think it's going to keep traffic backups to a minimum, and we're prepared to support that financially and otherwise.
Well, I guess, okay, then let me expound further on that. What would be, I know you don't know how long it's gonna take to write a grant or assist in writing a grant, but what kind of dollars are we talking about if we're gonna be liable for helping this? And because when it was originally pitched, it was gonna be, no, this is the gig, and we're gonna take care of it. But I mean, if the city's gonna be chipping in funds, then I wanna know what that's gonna be.
I'm not.
Time is funds.
Well, maybe, the city has done this before, where it's sort of this issue or grant, correct? Oh, sure, from other organizations. Could you just give an example or two how it's worked?
Well, I mean, we've applied for grants for like facade improvements for buildings downtown, for design improvements, that have benefited specific property owners. We've applied for grants to basically do all the streetscapes in the downtown corridor with regards to it. We've done various road projects for various parts of town, like the East Street, the north section of East Street was a grant project that we got funded for that. So we've applied for grants all over the place to help various components of town. I don't know any particular grants that they're thinking of applying for. I know that's a discussion with the Northern Links Economic Alliance to see what opportunities might be out there. But until I know a specific grant that they're looking to apply for or possibly ask us for assistance with, I really can't give a cost figure per se. And, the commission would like it, and that's something that before we go, there is an avenue to pursue that it comes back to the commission or something.
Just for clarification, the memo that's in front of us right now is approving the first reading of an amendment to chapter 54 of the Boyne City Code of Ordinance to enact article. So essentially, this is not committing us to being a financial fiduciary.
No.
At any, say this reading gets approved and the second reading gets approved 6 months, a year down the road, he finds a grant opportunity. He comes to you in support of, hey, can the city help us get this public entity grant? Then it would come to the commission. The commission at that point in time would say, yes, we will help you with that grant. This is the application process. This is the hours that it would take. That's too many hours. We're not going to be able to help you with that. Or yes, that's within the realm of what we've consistently have done in the past, and we can help out with that, correct? Or
That seems like a logical scenario.
yes.
No, I'm great with that explanation. I'd be fine with that. That's all I wanted to know. As far as, how we proceed, as far as the explanation of the different grants. There was DDA, and then, streetscape is, what we do with the DPW and everything, so, but I respect Jim's response, and I'll accept that.
Yeah, then, the 28 feet clearance and 35 clearance. What's the current, average, I guess, of lines across the road?
I don't know what that average is. I think the low ones are sub 20 feet, maybe 19, 18 and a half, somewhere in that range.
Okay.
And those are the ones we're currently having to lift,
Right.
and stop at.
So when, I suppose when we were doing your homework on this, yeah, I'm sure you're talking utility companies already.
Correct.
Would they plan on just going underground with theirs versus making a 35-foot tall?
Yeah. So right now, all the communication lines are currently, you've probably seen the markings on the street, they will all be going underground, in the next month and a half. The power side is the part that may still have some above ground lines. Apparently the primary lines, they don't like to jump underground and then back up. All the secondary lines will go underground. So we may have one, as I understand it, one or two crossings that will still exist as power lines. I'm working with them to try to solve that problem, so they're all underground. But currently, we might have two power line crossings at the facility above ground. Everything else will be routed underground.
I'm full support of this win-win situation. Okay, I support this as well. Getting world-class business and having Boyne City be your home is a really great thing. We're not being really asked to do anything other than to create this ordinance and support a very important business that we saw in both corners of this. And one of the questions I had, and I probably should have brought it up when you were here before about your letter. You have here over the next 10 years, we will be looking at investing heavily in infrastructure expansion, including adding buildings on our property in Division Street and our waterfront location in the Harvard. Have you thought that far ahead of what the buildings might be or what you're planning?
Yeah, we're actively trying to move towards more heavily focused on service. So they would be service buildings. So we would increase the size of the shops essentially. We're not looking to increase the size of the number of storage customers we have. We're really looking to expand the shop size and the technical work that we do.
And then by raising these two, you'd be able to take more boats that are stored at Harvard and take them back to your.
That's exactly right. We're hoping, if we can deal with a couple primary power lines, we might even be able to take massed up storage up to our property on Division Street also. So, yeah, the hope is that we can, really increase the size, the technical, kind of the more technically challenging boats that we can bring up to the shop and work at, therefore expand our workforce, expand our shops.
Ideally, there would be less boats stored down at the harbor during the off.
In an ideal world, yeah. There are some people that's what they like. They like masked up on the harbor at the waterfront storage and whether we try and promote them to come up to shops. Is a little bit to be determined. The hope would be that we'd be able to transport more of those to the shops.
You had something, Mike?
Just to let you know that we did run this possible change to subsection 2 under section 5482, which talks about the height from the 28 versus the 35. I think that Mr. Van Dam was requesting. And the attorney was fine that that's a minor modification that could be made either now or at the second reading if the commission wanted to.
So we were to approve this in a first reading. Mr. Van that we changed it to 35 feet, under 2 late corners.
That's correct.
Okay, any other discussion, Commissioner? If not, I entertain a motion. Yes, oh. And I did not go to the audience, I'm sorry. Did I miss the audience?
Before you do that, can you ask the commission whether they would support the 35-foot area? We don't have to go through that now.
Well, would you make a motion? Go ahead, Cindy, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Sandy Pritchard, 526 East Lincoln. I think Marty touched on a good point. these are changes that people like to know about. Shame on them if they're not fully engaged, but they aren't always. And when did the signs go up?
They went up today.
So I say as a starting point, and say transparency and communication, give it a chance to get out in front of the public. The people in the community would be the first thing. Question, the need to raise is from, right now it says 28, it needs to go to 35, but I heard the ones that are sticklers are to George's question. Most of them are 18 and a half and 19 are the ones that are the problem. So my question is, why does it need to go to 35? Maybe he answered that, but I missed it. Maybe it was the masked up aspect to it. In terms of city funding down the road, I recognize what Tim had to say. Our community, they're $176,000 short for the Field of Dreams, which serves everyone. Pickleball people, Little League people all have to find a way to fund what they do. So I would be prudent in considering how much the city ultimately would commit to a private enterprise. Just a caution there. It sounds as though we're looking at, there aren't any more vote slips yet. Is there going to be an increase in the, what we call in and out service that will go along with that? That would be a question I'm sure that others in the community. It's one thing to launch boats fall and spring, but and it sounds as though the Van Dams are fleshing out their business plan and their model, which I think is another reason to give them a chance to maybe get some harder answers. But that would be something I would be interested to know, is what portion of that benefit would go to more in and out temporary launches. Thank you.
Anyone else? And while we're ready to break,
Chris Christensen, 125 Stewart Street. I'm not opposed to this project at all, and quite honestly, I'm looking more at the long-term ramifications of what's here. I mean, to go from the 18-foot problem to virtually double the height of the wire. I mean, at one point in time, there was discussion around here a few years back, and I say a few years back, about going to underground electrical wires. And I know it wasn't branched all the way up to Division at that time, but it was primarily out of the downtown area. But I think that at some point, the vision was to have an underground, kind of a view corridor type thing. I mean, there used to be a day where you could see down virtually every street in Boyne City, catch the lake. Not that the wires are development and all that, but before we go and make rules and exceptions that are going to double the height of the thing, again, I'm not opposed to it. It's a solution to a problem. I understand it, but for the opportunity to tackle a longer term outcome here, consideration to maybe look at underground as an option and start with a corridor like this, because it's a major corridor. Division Street, Pleasant Avenue, these are major corridors. It's not like you're asking to go underground on parts of Cedar or Pine or anything like that yet. I mean, anyway, so anyway, that's I'm just saying, weigh out the options. I mean, I know that the power companies are not huge fans of the underground wire, but there are a number of communities that have gone to that, and it actually really helps with the overall presentation and the neighborhood sort of feel. You're not, poking these wires all over the place. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, so commissioners, are there any questions you have?
Yeah, from public comments, Ben, can you anticipate this increasing in and out services?
No, I don't. In fact, I think we'll do the opposite. Part of the reason to increase the height is to increase the size of the project we're able to work on. As I mentioned, we are not trying to expand the number of boats we store. In fact, we're trying to reduce the number of boats we store by increasing the size of the boat we store. So if anything, it will reduce the number of trips, not this year, but certainly 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road. That's the intent.
And then the other question, it was a thought that I had as well, but I think you kind of touched on it when you first started talking. Was that like the cable companies and that they're able to do the underground? Why is it that you're struggling with the underground with, is it consumers or great?
Yeah, consumers. Yeah, my understanding, and certainly I don't claim to be an expert at this, but my understanding is the primary line for safety concerns, and I'm not clear, I believe it's a stepped up voltage. They don't like to have that running high, go underground and go high, in which the primary line, of course, is continuing on. The secondary lines go into, they're coming from a transformer, going to local houses. It sounds like they're happy to bring those underground and run the ground if they need to. But my understanding is the primary, they're at least reticent to just say yes right away. Whether I can wear it down, I'm not sure yet. But.
Is that something that you think you can wear them down on? I mean,
I don't know, to be completely honest, and I see I have seen, I guess I would say, the opportunity to at least have the conversation with them. So I'm hopeful.
Mike, on the notification, then here a month or so ago, the presentation, has there been any response that the city received since then?
Not that I've received. I don't know if Scott or Jessica have heard anything.
Okay, well, Commissioner, we've gone through and is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve a first reading amendment to chapter 4 of the Boyne Code of Ordinance to enact Article 4, Section 482, 1 to 5, and schedule a second reading on June 15, 2023 or later, with the change the ordinance to 35 feet. With 28 feet.
There's a second. Further discussion? Jessica, roll call please.
Nemeth.
Aye.
Conklin. Moody.
Aye.
Meehan.
Aye.
Laster.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Okay, next up is our closed session request from the city manager. Consider the request from the city manager Michael King going closed session for discussion of collective bargaining strategy and provided with MCL 15.323A of the Michigan Open Meetings Act. And number 2, consider the request from city manager Michael King to go into closed session for periodic personnel evaluation of a public officer as provided in MCL 25.26A. 268A of the Michigan Open Meetings Act. So with that, we can go to, I guess we should go into the order before we have to look at the order. Okay, now these are the next regular city commission meeting scheduled for May 23rd, 2023 at 12 p.m. So if we could have a motion to enter.
I'll make a motion to enter closed session.
Is there a second? Or roll call, Jessica?
Conklin.
Aye.
Moody.
Aye.
Meehan.
Aye.
Laster.
Aye.
Nemeth.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Zach, you send me the PowerPoint.
Yeah, that was working on it, and we are also. And yeah, I'll send that to you. It's got more links.
Okay, I'll share that with the commission.
I'll do it right again.
Okay, super.
Thanks,
for
guys. I
coming.
appreciate it.
Thanks, Zach.
No. Might take you 5 minutes. What's your question?
We had a whole session at 5.
Can't speak to whether it is entailed. Well, no, I'm asking what you mentioned before, so that's our quote in the sense of, was that the subject of what we said?
I want to be really careful on every, I'm not trying to jump your question, but my understanding is that I can't talk.
But it's weird to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody's like, it's not.
I understand. Different is what I can tell you, and I will let you know. I like to do
That's. There's a lot.
I haven't looked at the problem. Well, I'm not. It's easy to remember. I don't see that as a.
Jim.
See you later.
Yeah, take care of that.
The short meeting, we're just getting started now. Yeah. They come in, hey. Good.
Thanks for coming.
Okay. I'm very good.
They do.
Thank you.
Did you go to the town board meeting last night?
You're the second person to ask me that today.
Well,
That's funny, because I was up the trail. Said something like, I don't even talk board meeting. Well, second.
it's kind of the react members meeting too.
Oh, yeah, did you go? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so no, the answer is no, I mean, not. I'm not. So.
There,
Marty, how are you?
I'm hanging in there, my friend. Yeah. Okay.
What do you know about that? Oh, yeah, that was pretty nice. I go agree. Yeah. I'm gonna give you. Well, I think that.